What newspapers do you read every day?
Oh, that's good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's the answer?
Me, as I said, I read many types is journal, scientific
Just the
journal.
name of the paper. That's all we need. The name of the papers you read every day. What
Okay.
newspapers do you read? Newspaper or newspapers do you read every day?
News, I do not read it every day, as I said, unless it is related with science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Done? Mr. Ficker.
The Republican from Garrett County, the Cumberland News Times, Frederick News Post, Hagerstown Daily Mail, Washington Post, which I used to deliver, USA Today, Baltimore Sun, anything that has to do with the 6th District, I'm going to read it because I'm going to represent you on the Hill.
You guys don't like to follow my rules. I'm getting very sad here. You like my poor kids in the back. Jeez. All right. Roll with me here, guys. Just the newspapers you read.
The Wall Street Journal and the Washington Times, the commentary section of the Washington Times alone is worth the price of admission.
Online, the Frederick News page, Post, Washington Street.
Herald Mail, Hagerstown, Maryland.
The Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times.
Yahoo News Online.
I don't even know what a newspaper is.
I would expect no less from a Marine. Love it. Okay. You admit the Marine Corps is owned by the Navy, right? Part of the Navy?
What's the Defense
Defense Department, yes. Okay. Let's turn our attention to immigration, okay? A topic you all have talked about a lot. We spent a lot of time talking about the right number of legal immigration, and each of you is for legal immigration and border enforcement. We know that. We've heard you before. But little is said, however, about what to do with the immigrants we already have here in this country, about how they are to be absorbed into our population. So, Mr. Howard, for the past 30 years or so, we have progressively abandoned the assimilationist model in favor of a multicultural approach. Is that the right course? Why or why not?
Assimilation is part of what makes America, America. And I believe you're absolutely correct, Cully. We've gotten away from it to the detriment of our country. And multiculturalism, I'd like to think, is well-intentioned, but as it has completely taken over that aspect of our nation, especially as it applies to immigration, we are becoming balkanized, and that is something that tears at the very fabric of this nation. And as one who was born on foreign soil, but is proud to be an American citizen, I firmly and personally believe, this is very personal, that assimilation is what brings us together as Americans, and the further we get away from it, the more balkanized we get. Heaven help this country if we have another president who's as divisive as this one. I think that we need to get back to assimilation. And Cully, I hope you're asking questions later on immigration policy and the like, because I know I'm out of time, but I tried to answer your specific question.
Mr. Painter.
I agree a lot with what Frank said there. If you're going to come here legally, then you need to assimilate. If you're not here legally, you need to go home. That's my story.
Ms. Hofer, you're the daughter of a first-generation Italian. Your thoughts?
My mother assimilated by becoming an English teacher. And I've always thought there was some interesting psychology involved with that. I never really had enough nerve to ask her how she felt about it. But she became an English teacher and a renowned English teacher in California. I believe assimilation is necessary. I think we need to ensure that everyone who comes into this country becomes part of the culture and becomes a productive member of the society.
Mr. Ficker, E-Verify is a web-based computer verification system used by the federal government, all federal contractors, and some businesses to verify the employment eligibility of potential workers. Some states, like Arizona, passed a law years ago to mandate that businesses are required to use E-Verify, and that knowingly hiring illegal aliens is a state law crime. The Supreme Court upheld that decision, as you remember, in the Chamber of Commerce versus Whiting decision from a few years ago. Should Congress pass a law requiring all businesses, say over 50 employees, to use E-Verify?
I'd vote for that because I think we need to know who's in our country. Look what's happened in Boston. Look what's happened in California. Look what's happening in the #1 city of Maryland, Hagerstown. The drugs are coming in. People who are coming into this country illegally are bringing poisons into the United States, into Hagerstown and Western Maryland, Garrett County, Cumberland. We need to know who's in this country. We need to make sure they're coming in legally, just like probate, marriage. They're legal processes. Coming into a new country is a legal process too, as my parents came in through Ellis Island. I'm very much in favor of making sure that people who come in on visas don't overstay their visas, people who are here legally. It's a legal process, and I'm in favor of E-Verify. I vote for that. We've got to protect our borders. We've got to make it impossible for people to come in illegally and impossible for the scourge of these illegal drugs that are killing our young people is ended. And I'm standing very strongly on that anti-deadly drug theme.
Mr. Vogt, E-Verify for all businesses?
I would absolutely support it and vote for E-Verify for all businesses. Because like my friend said, it is very important to know who is in our country and why they're here, which is one of the reasons I supported the governor in not allowing refugees in from Syria until we can guarantee that we can do so safely, protecting our people here first. Where I disagree with my friend a little bit, he must think we're in Washington County. I don't know that. I think all of the 6th Congressional District is the best part of Maryland. Every town has its uniqueness, not just one of them, but having the ability to protect our borders and verify who is here, and then, like in the previous question, if they're here illegally, give them an option. They pay the penalty or they leave.
Mr. Baker, your thoughts? E-Verify for all businesses?
Yes, I'd have no hesitation to support E-Verify for all businesses. And as a trades instructor at Washington County Technical High School, nothing frustrates me more. And you hear business people out there, they talk about the need to bring the illegals or the immigrants into the country to do jobs. They say they're doing the jobs that the Americans won't do. I know firsthand from being an educator in the trades field, we're not training our kids to do those jobs. Our kids want to work. Myself, I'm where I'm at in life because of my hands and my skills and my ability with trades. And there's so many young people out there looking for direction. We should be giving them some direction, train them for a job that they can be successful at and they want to do. And let's follow the laws of the land, and let's give these jobs back to our true Americans.
So we got a few more questions here, a couple more questions here. Then we're going to take our break. Just to give you a heads up for planning purposes. We're going to stay on immigration for a moment. And this goes to Mr. Howard, Mr. Mason, Mr. Painter in that order. Mr. Howard, the Obama administration quietly suspended an immigration enforcement program called the Social Security No Match program early on. I can explain what it is, but essentially it was designed to detect the use of false or stolen Social Security numbers by employees who were hired by the employers, and the Social Security Administration would run a routine check. They would send a letter to the employer and say, hey, by the way, that Social Security number that was used does not match up with the date of birth or the name that was provided. As a member of Congress, would you require the next administration to start using the Social Security No Match program again?
I certainly would. I also support U.S. Visit and E-Verify. I recently responded to Numbers USA which is a well-known immigration reform group, and received, in their view, a perfect score on a number of things related to immigration. But yes, the Obama administration has done some things regarding immigration that make me scratch my head and wonder who they're really working for and what their purposes are. For the life of me, I can't understand why in the world they would want to enable fraud, immigration fraud, people to come into the country. We don't know who they are. I'm not sure what their motivations are, but your question was, as a member of Congress, would I? And I certainly would require the next administration to go back to that program and then some other programs as well.
Mr. Mason?
Absolutely. I heard Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon, president, former president of Mexico, they were interviewed and they said that the illegal immigration is being used to take back the lands that we stole from them in the Mexican-American War. Their words. So it tells you the idea about illegal immigration. They look at it as an invasion. We have got to stop the illegal immigration. It's no different than a military force coming over our borders and taking over our country. We need E-Verify, we need the Social Security match, we need everything we can possibly get. We need to start deporting people as fast as we can get. FDR deported 6 million people, no problem. Why can't we start deporting millions of people with no problem? We can, we just don't have the will, because immigration is a Democrat voter drive to get more votes into this country and crush the Republican Party forever. That's exactly what it is. And big businesses go along with it because it's cheap labor. They're selling us out, and they're trying to sell us out with the vote.
I also would support the Social Security check, but I know how it worked in practice and big improvement you can make, because the way it works physically, I mean, I'm a CPA, I've seen it dozens of times. Somebody goes to work, say now, they're not going to get, the IRS is not going to get the Social Security number to match up with the withholdings until next February. That's when they get it. They then send a letter June or July. So 12 to 15 months after somebody is working, that is when the IRS knows whose Social Security number is supposed to match up with withholdings. Now, I mean, that's true. I do it every day of the week. I know I'm talking now. What they need to do is move that way up. When you sign a W-4, you give it to your employer, it goes to your personnel file. It does not go to the IRS, okay? Unless you claim more than 9 exemptions. So it's more of an IQ test than anything else. They need to start at least on a random basis, or if an employer is suspicious basis, if not more, checking that W-4 now, not 14 months from now, when the guys have moved on to the next job.
All right, last question before our break. It goes to Mr. Vogt, Ms. Hober, and Dr. Chang in that order. And this is about federal debt and spending. This section is going to be on that, so we're going to break near the end of the domestic policy section, follow up with a few domestic policy questions when we get back, and then jump into foreign policy. The city of Flint, Michigan, as you know, Mr. Vogt, has been in the news because of lead in city pipes. More than 40% of Flint homes contain dangerous levels of lead in their drinking water. Now some in Congress are proposing a $250 million federal bailout of the Flint, Michigan locally operated utility, despite the fact that Michigan has a $386 million rainy day fund and a $575 million budget surplus. Utah Senator Mike Lee opposes the federal bailout on principle. Is he right? And if so, what spending principles would you use in deciding whether to spend federal money on local projects?
Federal bailout is big government micromanaging across the country, and Flint is going in and invading where the local government should be doing their responsibility. And in that circumstance, I have no doubt that Governor Hogan and at least myself would be fighting that same decision here locally. We've seen federal spending going through the roof. $19 trillion and counting in debt. They can't pass a budget to save their lives. Continuing resolution after resolution. In fact, I was a civil servant at headquarters Marine Corps at the Pentagon when I decided that I couldn't stand on the sideline because our Congress and our President decided sequestration was the best answer to their inability to pass a budget, cut spending, and get the job done. And I gave up that job so that I could run for office because I've got 2 boys that aren't going to have a future to inherit. if we do not get this under control right now. So we have to control it today.
Ms. Hofer, bailout Flint?
I would not have the bailout. I would not support a bailout. Basically, a basic fundamental Republican tenet is to minimize the role of the federal government in our lives. I am in favor of reducing federal government intrusion in communities and individuals' lives. It's similar to the whole free trade agreement in the sense that the government shouldn't be involved in things that it doesn't need to be involved in. Go back to the Constitution, and it says the primary role of the federal government is to provide for the common defense. It doesn't say anything about bailing out cities that are in trouble. And a fundamental Republican tenet is that the federal government should only do those things that cannot be done by individuals or communities. And I think it belongs at the state and local levels, not at the federal level.
Yeah, you know, the USA debt is too high. I think we should decrease that debt. We should decrease that one. And then we have to stimulate our economic and then have the create more jobs, then have more income. I support that. But that have to, but for that issue, I will say that state, local government handle this case because if the issue is big and very big, and then local government have ability to handle it. Yes, federal government can involve me. That's my point.
All right,
Yeah.
folks, it's that magic hour where we're going to take a 5-minute break. It is 8:06 by my iPhone. Come back in 5 minutes when we get started.